first thing I noticed was the silence. Not the comfortable quiet of an empty house, but the deliberate silence of something holding its breath. Our footsteps echoed unnaturally on the hardwood floor as we entered Mark's house, the door swinging open with an invitation we should have declined. The dining room light cast long, unnatural shadows across walls that seemed to lean inward, watching us. Steam rose from plates, arranged with geometric precision on a table set for 4, not 2. I felt a chill creep up my spine, despite the unseasonable warmth inside the house. Something was profoundly wrong. "Mark," I called out, my voice absorbed by the walls, as if they were hungry for sound. No response. Sarah clutched my arm, her nails digging into my flesh through my jacket sleeve. I could feel her pulse racing against my skin. We'd been dating for 6 months, and this was supposed to be our first dinner with my new colleague. Mark had been insistent about hosting us, though I barely knew him beyond our brief interactions at the office. Now, standing in his immaculate dining room with food steaming on the table but no host in sight, I struggled to remember what he actually looked like. His features seemed to slip from my memory like water through cupped hands. My phone vibrated. A message from Mark. "Sorry for the delay. Traffic is terrible. Help yourselves to dinner. Be there in 20. I showed Sarah the text, and she visibly relaxed. Her grip loosened on my arm as she suggested we sit down and wait. I nodded, though something about the message felt off. The timestamp was wrong, showing the message had been sent hours earlier, despite just arriving. And the profile picture had Mark always had that strange blur where his face should be. The food smelled delicious: roast beef, potatoes, some kind of sauce with herbs I couldn't identify. Yet I couldn't bring myself to touch it. The plates were spotless beneath the food, with no signs of preparation anywhere. The kitchen, visible through an open doorway, was immaculate. No pots, no pans, no cutting boards, just pristine countertops gleaming under recessed lighting. Sarah took a hesitant bite and remarked on how delicious everything was. I watched her chew, my stomach turning. The food on my plate seemed to pulse slightly, as if breathing. I blinked, and it was normal again. I blamed the wine, though I'd barely touched my glass. The house creaked around us, settling or perhaps expanding. The sound came from everywhere at once, above, below, within the walls. My heartbeat accelerated to match the irregular rhythm of the house's groans. Sweat began to bead across my forehead, despite the dining room suddenly feeling 10 degrees colder. I excused myself to find the bathroom, desperate for a moment alone to collect my thoughts. The hallway stretched before me, longer than it should have been based on the house's exterior. The wallpaper pattern, subtle floral designs when we'd entered, now seemed to form faces when viewed from the corner of my eye. They disappeared when I looked directly at them, but I could feel their gaze following me. The bathroom mirror showed my reflection, but something was wrong. My movements were delayed by half a second, as if my reflection were deciding whether to follow my lead. My pupils were dilated despite the harsh fluorescent light. When I turned on the faucet, the water ran red for 3 seconds before clearing. I splashed my face anyway, my hands trembling so badly that water spattered across the pristine counter. My phone vibrated again. Another message from Mark. "I see you found the bathroom. The water pressure is terrible, isn't it?" My breath caught in my throat. I dropped the phone, watching it clatter into the sink. Through the bathroom's small window, I could see our car in the driveway and someone sitting in the driver's seat. The silhouette was motionless, head turned toward the house, watching. When I returned to the dining room, Sarah was gone. Her chair was pushed in, her plate clean as if she'd never been there. My plate, however, was now empty too, though I hadn't eaten a bite. I called her name, my voice cracking with panic. The sound died inches from my lips. A text from Sarah's phone appeared. In the basement, Mark showed me his collection. You have to see this. Mark had a basement? I hadn't noticed any stairs, yet there they were, behind a door I was certain hadn't existed when we arrived. They descended into absolute darkness, a cool draft carrying the scent of earth and something metallic. My legs moved against my will, drawn down those stairs, one agonizing step at a time. The wood groaned beneath my weight, the sound morphing into something almost like words in a language I almost understood. My breath came in shallow gasps, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. The darkness below seemed to reach up, wrapping around my ankles like fingers pulling me deeper. At the bottom, I fumbled for a light switch and found one. The single bulb that illuminated cast more shadows than light. The basement was one large room with concrete floors and walls, empty except for a small table in the center, holding an old rotary phone. It began to ring. My mouth went desert dry as I approached it, my footsteps unsteady. I lifted the receiver, pressing it to my ear with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. Hello? I whispered. Why did you come to dinner? Mark's voice, but wrong somehow, like multiple voices speaking in imperfect unison. No one invited you. You did, I insisted, my voice barely audible. You sent the invitation last week. Check your messages, the voice suggested. With trembling fingers, I pulled out my phone. The message thread with Mark was empty. No invitation. No apology for being late. Nothing. I heard footsteps on the stairs behind me. Turning, I saw Sarah descending, her movements stiff and mechanical. Her eyes met mine, but there was no recognition there. Her mouth curved into a smile that was too wide, showing too many teeth. He's been waiting for you, she said, but her lips didn't move. The voice came from the phone still pressed against my ear. I dropped the receiver and ran past her, taking the stairs two at a time. I burst through the front door into the cool night air, gasping as if I'd been underwater. Our car sat empty in the driveway. The house behind me was dark, not a single light on, not even the porch light that had welcomed us. Sarah emerged a moment later, looking confused. She asked why I'd run out so suddenly. According to her, we'd just arrived, hadn't even gone inside yet. She showed me her phone, a new message from Mark, apologizing because he had to cancel our dinner plans last minute due to a family emergency. As we drove away, I glanced back at the house. Through the dining room window, I could see the silhouette of a man standing at the table, raising a glass in our direction. My phone vibrated with a new message. Next time, it read, I'll make sure to be home when you arrive for dinner. There was no sender. The sound pierces the winter silence like a silver needle through fabric. A bell, its crisp ring hanging in the frigid air before dissolving into the vastness of white. Not the dull clang of a cowbell or the tinny jingle of sleigh bells, but something ancient and pure. A single perfect note that seems to bypass your ears and resonate directly in your spine. My brother Marcus freezes mid-stride beside me, our breath clouding between us as our eyes meet in silent confirmation. We both heard it, and something in that delicate chime awakens a primal instinct that whispers, follow. I've always trusted my instincts in the wilderness. 5 years as a search and rescue volunteer taught me to respect the mountains, especially in winter when they transform into beautiful death traps draped in white. Yet here I am, breaking every rule I know, veering off the marked trail with Marcus to chase a sound that logic says shouldn't exist, this deep in the backcountry. The bell rings again, somehow both closer and farther away, a contradiction that makes my skin prickle beneath layers of thermal gear. The forest ahead grows dense, pine branches heavy with snow creating a darkened maze. I check my watch, 3 hours of daylight left. Marcus gestures toward the tree line, his expression a mix of excitement and unease. I nod, though something in my gut tightens like a fist. We push forward, snow crunching beneath our boots. The temperature seems to drop with each step, the cold becoming a living presence that presses against my face and seeps through my gloves. The bell calls again, pulling us deeper. An hour passes, maybe more. Time feels slippery here. The forest has swallowed us completely now, the trail long forgotten. My phone shows no signal, and the GPS is struggling to maintain satellite connection. The trees stand too close together, branches interlacing overhead in unnatural patterns that block both sky and perspective. I can't shake the sensation that they've shifted behind us, closing ranks to prevent retreat. Marcus points ahead to a small clearing. My heart stutters when I see it, the remains of a campsite, half buried in snow. I brush away ice crystals from a collapsed tent, revealing fabric that was once bright orange, but now hangs in tatters, bleached by countless seasons. A cooking pot sits upright nearby, oddly free of snow as if recently used. The site feels wrong, preserved in a way that defies natural decay. Marcus whispers that we should leave, his voice unnaturally loud in the muffled forest. I agree, but the bell rings again before we can move, closer now, almost teasing. My rationality battles against a growing compulsion. I explain to Marcus that we should report the campsite to authorities once we return, but something in my voice sounds hollow, unconvincing. The words feel scripted, as if spoken by someone else using my mouth. Marcus nods too quickly, his eyes darting between the trees. I realize he's experiencing the same internal tug-of-war. We find a second abandoned camp 30 minutes later, then a third. Each shows signs of hasty departure, scattered supplies, open backpacks with contents frozen in place. At the fourth site, I discover a journal protected inside a waterproof case. The final entry, dated 3 years ago, contains just one line. It's not the bell that calls, it's what rings it. My hands tremble as I replace the journal. The afternoon light has taken on a strange quality, filtering through the branches and shafts that seem to bend at impossible angles. Shadows stretch in directions that don't align with the sun's position. The cold intensifies until it burns, my lungs aching with each breath. The bell rings again, and now I can almost pinpoint its location. 100 yards ahead, perhaps less. Marcus clutches my arm, his fingertips digging through my jacket. He warns me through clenched teeth that we're being watched. I felt it too, eyes following our every movement from the spaces between trees. Not animal eyes, something else. We should turn back. We need to turn back. But my feet move forward as if drawn by invisible threads. Marcus follows, his breathing labored. Neither of us speaks of how we've been walking for hours yet haven't managed to leave the forest's embrace, how the mountain's geography seems to fold in on itself like a puzzle box. The clearing appears suddenly, a perfect circle of untouched snow surrounded by sentinel pines. In its center, a single pole of weathered wood rises from the ground, topped by a small silver bell that gleams despite the absence of direct sunlight. It hangs motionless in the still air. My mouth turns to dessert as I approach. No footprints mar the snow besides our own, yet the inexplicable certainty that we're not alone intensifies with each step. The air thickens, pressure building in my ears as if descending underwater. Marcus calls my name, his voice distorted and stretched like taffy. The bell is ornate upon closer inspection, engraved with symbols I almost recognize, shapes that seem to shift when viewed directly, rearranging themselves in my peripheral vision. My fingertips hover inches away, drawn to its polished surface, despite every warning bell in my mind. A gust of wind rises from nowhere, swirling the snow around us into miniature cyclones. The forest darkens as clouds gather overhead with unnatural speed. The bell moves slightly, though not enough to ring. A voice that isn't a voice fills my head, wordless yet clearly communicating. We've been waiting for you to return. Return? I've never been here before. Yet as the thought forms, memories that aren't mine flood my consciousness. Memories of this place, of the bell, of what waits beyond it. Marcus cries out behind me, and when I turn, his face contorts with the same horrified recognition. The forest groans around us, trees bending inward. The bell begins to sway on its own, building momentum, but producing no sound. Understanding crashes through me like ice water. It never made a sound. The ringing was inside us all along, an ancient calling encoded in our blood. I stagger backward, fighting against the pull. Marcus grabs my arm and we run, stumbling through snow that now seems to clutch at our boots. The memory of a marked trail flickers in my mind like a distant beacon. Behind us, shadows lengthen and merge, flowing between trees with purpose. We don't stop running until the forest finally thins and familiar landmarks appear. The ranger station lights glow ahead, impossibly welcome. Only then do I realize we've lost hours. The moon hangs high in a clear sky that had been bright with afternoon sun when we found the bell. 3 days later, sitting safe in my apartment, I still feel it calling. The rangers found no campsites, no journal, no bell when they investigated. But they discovered our boot prints circling aimlessly for miles before turning abruptly toward the station. They suggested hypothermia might have caused shared hallucinations. But the small silver bell that appeared on my bedside table this morning suggests otherwise. And tonight, as snow begins to fall outside my window, I swear I can hear it ring. The first time my daughter claimed the bathroom mirror was speaking to her, I dismissed it as teenage imagination, a mistake that still haunts me in the darkest hours of night, when the shadows creep across my bedroom walls like elongated fingers reaching for my throat. I notice the changes in Emma gradually, like a photograph slowly developing in chemical bath, subtle at first, lingering in the bathroom longer than usual. Hushed conversations I assumed were phone calls to friends. My wife mentioned Emma's new habit of leaving the bathroom light on all night. We blamed it on typical teenage phases, something she'd outgrow. Then came the night I passed by the bathroom at 3 a.m., bladder full and mind foggy with sleep. The door was ajar, a thin strip of light cutting across the hallway carpet. Through the crack, I saw Emma sitting cross-legged on the bathroom counter, her back to me, facing the mirror. Her head was tilted, as if listening intently. The bathroom was otherwise silent. I pushed the door open, the hinges protesting with a low creak. Emma didn't turn around. I asked what she was doing up so late. Her response sent ice water through my veins. She said she was just talking to her friend. When I stepped further into the room, I saw only her reflection in the mirror, but her lips weren't moving. The bathroom was empty except for us. Morning brought rationalization. Sleepwalking, perhaps. A vivid dream. Teenagers were strange, constantly reinventing themselves. My wife suggested we monitor Emma's sleep patterns, maybe consult a specialist if the behavior continued. The following week, I noticed dark circles forming under Emma's eyes, her skin growing pallid. She spent hours locked in the bathroom. When questioned, she insisted she needed privacy. My wife reported finding Emma asleep on the bathroom floor twice that week, curled up like a child beneath the sink. One evening, passing the bathroom, I overheard Emma speaking in hushed tones. She wasn't asking questions or pausing for responses, just listening, then occasionally whispering yes or I understand. I pressed my ear against the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. Emma was saying she wasn't ready yet, that she needed more time. She sounded afraid. I burst into the bathroom, startling her so badly she nearly fell off the counter. The mirror reflected only our shocked expressions, mine wild with concern, hers frozen in guilt. When I demanded to know who she was talking to, she claimed she was practicing for a school presentation. The lie hung between us, palpable as morning mist. That night, I confided in my wife. Her face grew ashen as I described what I'd witnessed. She admitted finding strange markings on the bathroom mirror each morning, fingerprints that weren't there the night before, smudges that reformed no matter how thoroughly she cleaned. She'd been too afraid to mention it, worried I'd think she was being paranoid. We agreed to remove the mirror immediately. The next morning, while Emma was at school, we took it down. The wall behind it was stained with black mold in the perfect outline of the mirror's frame. Impossible, given the mirror had been mounted for only 3 years in our relatively new house. The discoloration seemed to pulse slightly when viewed from the corner of my eye, though when I looked directly, it remained static. My wife suggested we remodel the entire bathroom. I agreed, desperate to erase whatever influence the mirror had exerted. We hired contractors to begin work immediately, replacing everything: tiles, fixtures, lighting. The mirror we wrapped in layers of moving blankets and stored in the garage until we could dispose of it properly. That night, Emma screamed. The sound tore me from sleep, my body moving before my mind fully awakened. I found her in the bathroom, staring at the blank wall where the mirror had been. Her hands pressed against nothing, fingers splayed as if touching glass. When I called her name, she didn't respond, her eyes fixed on the empty space, tracking something I couldn't see. I approached slowly, sweat beading along my hairline despite the cool night air. As I reached for her shoulder, Emma whispered that they were angry now. The friends on the other side couldn't reach her anymore. They needed her to come to them instead. My wife appeared in the doorway, face drained of color. Together, we guided Emma back to bed, taking turns sitting with her until she fell into fitful sleep. We discussed doctors, psychiatrists, specialists, anything to explain what was happening to our daughter. Dawn broke, gray light filtering through bedroom curtains. Exhausted, I made coffee while my wife checked on Emma. Her scream brought me running upstairs, mug shattering on kitchen tile as I bolted toward the sound. In Emma's room, my wife stood frozen before our daughter's vanity mirror. Emma slept peacefully in her bed, unaware of our presence. But in the mirror, her reflection sat upright, hands pressed against the glass from the inside. Across the reflective surface, perfect handprints appeared, not Emma's smaller ones, but large adult palms, fingers splayed wide, as if someone on the other side was trying to push through. As we watched, paralyzed with horror, the handprints multiplied across every reflective surface in the room: the window, the screen of Emma's laptop, even the glossy cover of a magazine on her nightstand. Each bore the same impossible pressure pattern, pushing outward. I grabbed Emma, shaking her awake. She blinked drowsily, then smiled. A smile I'd never seen before, with too many teeth and eyes that reflected nothing. "They found another way in," she said, her voice overlapping with something deeper, something that seemed to echo from everywhere and nowhere at once. "They don't need mirrors anymore, not when they have me." I caught my own reflection in her pupils, distorted, elongated, my face stretched in silent horror. Behind my reflection, shadows moved with purpose, watching, waiting. I realized then that whatever had been on the other side hadn't been trying to pull Emma through. It had been trying to come through to our side all along. And now, it was looking back at me through my daughter's eyes.